Hello, and welcome to another retro video game stream on original hardware. This evening we're going to be playing some Asteroids, an Atari classic on the Atari 8-bit home computer, my original Atari 130XE. And after that we'll play some Asteroids on the 2600. I played Asteroids primarily this way when I was a kid. I played it on the Atari 8-bit. I didn't actually see it in the arcade until I was probably like, I don't know, 10 or 11 or something like that. And so when I saw the really cool vector graphics, the really bright, illuminated vector graphics, I was sort of like really impressed. I remember, I think I saw it at a pizza place, and I was like, oh, this is Asteroids? The Asteroids I had known was always on the 8-bit computer. We had it on the 2600. No, we didn't. We did not have it on the 2600 originally when I was a kid. And as such, I remember playing it at like a cousin's house and maybe at a friend's house. And actually, no, I remember playing it at the place where we bought our Atari stuff, which was the Electronics Connection in Dayton, Ohio. And they had it on display there. And I probably played it when I was like 4 or 5 maybe, when we went to visit Electronics Connection. They had a display screen and a 2600, and you could just play Asteroids as much as you wanted. And somehow in my mind, like I thought, I didn't realize it was a different version of Asteroids. I thought like, well, why doesn't mine have like multicolored asteroid blocks? Because in the 8-bit version they're all like blue, which is, you know, not as colorful as the 2600 version. One thing that the 8-bit version has over the 2600 version is you can play cooperatively. I don't know if you can play cooperatively on the 2600 version. You might be able to, but the 8-bit version actually isn't that hugely more impressive than the 2600 version. The 2600 version of Asteroids is actually pretty good. It's one of the better Atari 2600 arcade conversions. They did a good job with it. Even though the Asteroids all kind of move in the same direction, it's still a pretty cool game and pretty fun to play. I mean, Asteroids inherently is just sort of simple. You know, you're blasting the asteroids as they float around, trying to get the spaceships as they float around, just go for a high score. But you know, that simple gameplay has always worked well. It's always been a favorite for many people, and including myself. I always liked Asteroids, especially like playing cooperatively with my dad when I was little. So we're going to start out by playing some 8-bit Atari Asteroids, and then we'll play 2600 Asteroids after that. So let's go ahead and get started. I don't know what game modes there are necessarily. I don't know if I can hit the Right, that looks a little bit better. It was a little dark. Okay. Um, looks like we got disconnected already. I apologize for that. Hopefully we won't have any more disconnects. Um, okay. Uh, yeah, I'm going to turn the volume up too. It was a little quiet. All right. So again, the 8-bit version, I've always felt like, you know, was fine. Obviously, it's very serviceable Asteroids, but it's not very colorful. I guess the thing that the 8-bit version has over the 2600 is that the asteroids are flying in all directions, which is more like how it is in the arcade. Whereas in the 2600 version, they just kind of scroll from the top to the bottom. And given the limitations of the hardware, that's not completely surprising. Now, the really excellent homebrew that was released in the last 10 years called Space Rocks for the 2600 is actually better, I think, than the 8-bit Asteroids. It's actually quite remarkable. And has asteroids that float all over the place like this. And if you didn't notice, the music that speeds up as you're playing, you know, it sounds like Jaws. It was directly inspired by Jaws. Now, one of the strategies that I was told by my dad as a kid is to wipe out the asteroids sort of quickly and not make a whole bunch of small asteroid debris. Like, if you have one big asteroid, you kind of shoot that down to nothing, and then you deal with the other ones. And that way that the screen doesn't get as full. Interesting. There's not unlimited range. I don't remember if that's how it is in the arcade or not. Another thing that's interesting about Asteroids is that they had to modify the arcade game because players would leave like one asteroid. Crud. And just wipe out the flying saucers for tons of points and rack up a huge high score. So they had to kind of make the game more difficult and the flying saucers and stuff more deadly. So it'd be interesting to play that kind of proto version of the game that existed. I think they call it like Revision B or something like that. Ah. So again, like, this is a fine version of Asteroids, and it's the one that I primarily played when I was a kid. But I actually think it's not as much fun, for whatever reason, as the 2600 version. I don't know if it's just sort of like... There's just something about it that's maybe a little less satisfying when you blow up the asteroids, even though you have the nice little explosions and there's some graphic improvements over the 2600 for sure. You do have I think you have a shield too in the 2600 version, but I don't know if you actually change shape like that. I have the manual for the 2600 version, but not the 8-bit version. Joystick seems a little unresponsive too. 8570, that's not very good. You can do better than that. I wonder if my button needs to be cleaned on my joystick here. My Suncom slick stick. Yeah. Seems a little unresponsive. That's not good. And I know the arcade version of Asteroids, you know, you have buttons. Strictly buttons. There's no joystick or control stick of any kind. Which is kind of old school. Yeah, see, it wasn't registering that. My joystick doesn't have a problem. Man, I feel like it's just not... My joystick's not very responsive. Wonder if I should try the Sega Genesis controller. I know that's not very... And there, when you have the shields, the asteroids kind of pass through you, which is not at all how it is in the arcade. The shield function wasn't added until Deluxe Asteroids, which must have come out in 81, because this is copyright 81. You can only hold the shield down for, like, I think 5 seconds or something like that. And again, like, when you're playing the Space Rocks version, it has a cool, like, sound effect that tells you that the shields are about to expire. Extra guy. One of the references to Asteroids that I liked as a kid was that it was referenced in E.T. where the older brother comes home and talks about some kid playing Asteroids for so long that unplugged the machine. I think that's right. The algorithm for respawning your ship is a little strange. They won't put you in the middle of something that's going to instantly kill you, so it seems to want to wait for a while. Ah. When will it put me back in the game? None of these conversions of Asteroids from the arcade will ever do justice to the really vibrant vector graphics of the arcade game, and it's too bad. Even emulated on like Steam, which you can get now, it does a pretty good job of looking pretty good, but it's still not as vibrant as real vector graphics. Nothing will capture that look except the real thing. And the same thing is true of other really good classic vector graphics games like Star Wars, the arcade game. You know, there's very good versions of that game. There's a good version of it on the Atari 8-bit, actually. And the 2600 has a sort of okay version as well. Which is remarkable. But it'll never look as good as the real thing in the arcade. Those really vibrant vector graphics on original CRT TV screen. Or whatever tube display that vector graphics uses. The designer of Asteroids also worked on one of my absolute favorite arcade games as a kid, Gauntlet. I think his name is Ed Logg. And he talked about when they were experimenting with different arcade game ideas. They had a spaceship game. It might have even been Space War, or some variety of Space War. And they had, like, asteroids in that game. And when they were testing it, he said that the playtesters all thought... They noticed they were always just shooting the asteroids for fun. And so Ed Logg was like, well, why don't we just make a game where you just shoot the asteroids? Which sounds sort of like, you know... blatantly obvious to some degree, but doesn't also necessarily seem like a thing people would want to do. If you think all the way back to like 1979, when they were designing these very early arcade games. But Asteroids was a massive hit for Atari, and it's still really fun to play. I mean, it's fun to just shoot, blow up everything on the screen. The addition of the flying saucers definitely adds an interesting element to the gameplay. I'm gonna blow up. Crud. I'm not following my own rules here. It's not responding. I wonder if that's a limitation of the memory. Because you're only supposed to be able to have so many missiles in the game based on the architecture of the processor. So I wonder how they manage that. Could also be that my joystick's just dirty, you know? Button's just unresponsive. Supposedly, the new 2600 Plus has a really nice joystick that comes with it. And it's definitely tempting, because they're backwards compatible, to just pick up the controller and the new paddles from that release. In fact, I probably will. It'd be nice to have a newer, better constructed Atari joystick. I also feel like the hit detection is a little weird in the 8-bit version. There's times I feel like the hitbox for the ship is bigger than it looks. We're doing pretty good here, all things considered. Another strategy is you want to stay closer to the center of the screen for the most part. It gives you the most space to react. We break 40,000. Almost. Another ship. See, that hit detection felt real bad there. I did not feel like that thing hit me. $43,000. That's a lot better than we got before. I'm sure this is one of those games that you can probably play till you roll over the score. I'm pretty sure that the Atari 2600 version of Asteroids is that way. Oh, what the heck? Again, weird hitbox. All right. 45,880. That seems decent-ish for a little run on 8-bit Atari Asteroids. So, we're going to switch over to the 2600 version now. So, I'm going to put away my Atari 8-bit. And